Hi, welcome. I'm going to give this thing just a second to log in, make sure we don't have any problems. Let me know if you can hear the sound. We had a microphone issue last time I was not too pleased with.
Oh, good.
Cool. Thanks, Verna. All right. Hi, guys. Welcome back to tonight's Awesome Live. What are we doing tonight?
Question and answer?
Question and answer. Right. Oh, thanks, Verna. Thank you for the info.
Oh,
Yeah, this
wonderful.
Mike was giving us some trouble for the last couple weeks. Yeah, so tonight, you guys, if you're dropping in live or if you're showing up later, which is fine too because we get back to all the questions, any question you have, hopefully we have the experience to answer, but you drop it down in the comments and we'll be happy to get to it. This is an open session. And if we don't get questions, I have a bunch of cool info ready anyway, which we'll be discussing. So welcome here, everybody. Welcome new people. If you're scrolling through the internet wondering who these people are and what this thing is, we are
The dinosaur omelet.
Dinosaur Omelet. Oh, Verna, you have questions?
Good.
You can pop them down. I'm just introducing us for all the new peeps. So we're the Dinosaur Omelet. We're a small hatchery / homestead in southern Lancaster County,
In Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. What a lovely state. We got, mountains and rivers. And we just went for a bike ride yesterday on the Enola Low Grade Trail, which is very nice down here. And we raise a variety of creatures, and we've been doing that for quite a while.
Yeah, our focus is in homesteading, self-sufficiency, having skills. So the types of animals, the critters that we keep and raise and also encourage others toward are animals that are practical, can be
Scaled.
kept on a small property or scaled to be in a larger property. And should we...
Oh yeah, Verna had a question.
Sorry,
How much?
I have a question.
Yeah, well, that's great. How much does a silky egg weigh compared to a quail egg? You know what? Let me go get some props. Let me go get a silky egg.
I have not actually weighed the silky eggs because I don't. It's not part of something that I do for the breeding program. But they can vary in size. Depending on the hen, the eggs can. When they're newer, just like any other chicken breed, when the hen is new, the eggs will be small to start, and then as she keeps laying, they'll increase in size.
Hold this one up.
This is a standard
egg.
Australorp, and that's a
Silky egg.
No.
And hold on, let me hold this one up there.
Oh, there. Okay.
Standard
Did
egg,
you have it?
silky egg, quail egg. Here, bring them up here. Standard egg, over here. This is a silky bantam egg. And that's the quail egg. And the quail eggs are what, 21?
No, they're more like 15 grams.
We had some big 21.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's about the size.
The
So
average.
these are like 2.5 quail eggs, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And the large chicken eggs, 3 quail eggs.
Yeah.
So how much they weigh?
I don't know.
I don't know. I could grab the scale in the meantime. Want me to grab the scale? Yeah, just talk to her. Let me grab the
I
scale.
don't think
Because
it's.
people ask this.
I don't think it's that nitty gritty of a detail, but you can see the size difference. 15 to 24 grams for a quail. Yes. Yeah, for the average jumbo quail egg, it's around the 15, 16 gram, and then the larger ones, you can get larger ones around the 18, 19, and 20, 21.
Yeah.
Even double yolkers.
And new people who don't know about quail, if you are I always like to say, if you're doing like police investigations, the quail leave a fingerprint, which is the pattern on their egg. They lay a specific pattern.
It's like an
Explore Backyard Homesteading. Hi, thanks for coming in.
Hello.
I don't know if we've met. You know, we all have our internet names. We got Facebook names, and then YouTube names or handles. Anyway, what was the place called? Explore Backyard Homesteading. Oh, is that my friend from Australia?
I'm not sure.
I believe so. Oh, it's Susan.
Well, hi,
Oh, hi.
Susan.
Oh, all right. Maybe you changed your name. I don't know. But I remember Susan.
Maybe.
Anyway, hi. Thanks for coming in, New Mexico. Yeah, I know who you are, Susan.
Yes, right, okay.
Yeah. So anybody who's dropping in here, these quail eggs, have a specific pattern to the quail
Okay,
that's
she changed it.
laying it. Well, that's why I didn't recognize you, Miss Susan. You changed your name. Well, thank you for letting me know. So anyway, again, going back to the beginning of this intro, we have let me just tell these people,
yeah,
and then I'll get to that. So again, briefly for us, for anybody new here, Chris, Angela.
Mm-hmm.
Check out the description, people. I always tell people this. Down in the description, I put a ton of educational stuff about quail, these quail quail raising checklist, and a whole bunch of other free material that we wrote. And I do a lot of illustration work, so I illustrate that. Check it out. So we're homestead in the southern Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. We raise jumbo Coturnix quail. Angela breeds magnificent puffy silky chickens for pets. And we also produce a chicken feed. And I'm developing some other chicken nutritional products as we speak. And that's why we do talk about poultry nutrition, because we know a lot about that. And it's very important and it's very specific. All right, Miss Burness had a comment.
I think we'll drop the info on how much the eggs weigh in the comments after.
Oh, okay. So did you find a scale so you can tell me how much the silky eggs weigh?
Yeah, Verna, we will get back to you on the weight of silky eggs. We'll drop that in the comments after the video.
That's fine.
And what was I gonna say? Yeah, so we encourage jumbo quail. We'll keep you in suspense. Jumbo quail to be raised for high production of eggs, and also they're awesome for meat because you can grow them very quickly, and then they taste great.
Yeah, like right now, backyard chicken people are going nuts looking for birds.
Yeah.
So the eggs, if you're watching this distant into the future, in 2025, we had the egg crisis. Large factory egg production facilities were culling millions of birds. Remember, that's going on right now. And so egg prices are getting very high. And so people want to, of course, raise their own chickens, which, newsflash, it's pretty expensive starting from scratch to raise chickens.
Yeah.
But that's
it's
other
understandable
issue we can discuss.
if you want to have a future source. If you're buying chicken chicks, you want to have a future source of eggs that you can control to some degree. Then it's a great.
I always say, they're probably more expensive, but A, yes, they're healthier, but B, you're enjoying the endeavor, and it's a much deeper experience. It's like sitting on my hands. She's waiting. Yeah. So the whole growing your own chickens or growing a tomato, whatever it is, if you're growing it yourself, it's a much deeper experience. I'm gonna go get that scale because now I'm really upset.
No, it's okay. So then we also have Muscovy ducks, which are a wonderful addition to a homestead. They're quiet. They're actually a cousin of ducks. They're not technically a duck and they're not technically a goose. But their body type is like a duck. And they're quiet. They don't quack. They just make kind of like a hissy, cooing sound. And the reason why they're great to have is because their meat is very much like sirloin steak. You wouldn't even know if you had the
Muscovies.
Yeah, if you had the meat. Do you mind grabbing that door? If you have the meat cooked and sitting next to a steak from a cow, you wouldn't know. They look the same. They taste very similar. So it's kind of like a wonderful way to have a miniature cow in your own yard that you're raising and having quality meat.
Grams. 35. Is that right? I'm measuring this silky bantam egg.
Yeah, and
so
I would
35
say,
grams for a silky egg, and the quail, that one's 17 grams.
I would say this one's a pretty standard size. This silky egg, because I do get some that are larger than this and some that are smaller.
Our friend Taco is on there, and she's don't text and drive, but thank you for listening. She says she's driving and listening.
So Verna, if you caught that, it's
30.
It's around 35 grams for the silky eggs.
Oh yeah, don't ask me to do the math
range.
and convert it to ounces.
Oh yeah.
So
No, that's a pretty standard measure.
Yeah, 35 grams for that egg, and I guess you'd have to measure a bunch to get an average, but they're about that size. About twice the size. Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. Yep. When you open it, So as you know, quail eggs, their yolk to albumin, the white, is different. The ratio to a regular chicken egg. A chicken egg, there's
Regular?
much more
Quail.
white or albumin in there compared to the quail egg. So when you crack open a quail egg, that is around probably 18 grams, and put it in crack it open, put it in your dish, and then you crack open a silky egg that's like 35 grams. The yolks may be similar in size. The silky egg may be a little larger, but because it has all that albumin, it's
Yeah.
it's
So
just
I did a really good project. I wish I had that information here. I did a project on the nutrient density because I'm really big into the nutrition stuff. So I wanted to know, everybody's always, and I don't like giving bad information. I can't stand that. There's misinformation, which people don't really understand, and they're sharing information that's just inaccurate. And then there's just straight up disinformation, telling things that aren't true at all. So the issue with the quail eggs, they're more nutrient dense, yes, but it's negligible. It's not so significant. It's not like an ultra super, nutritional difference density wise. Oh, that's great, Vernie. You have a chart on the different nutrition of different eggs. Yeah, but something too that's important is the nutritional profile of the bird's diet. What is the bird eating? Because the egg is going to be a culmination of the compounds that the bird's eating and absorbing into its cells and passing on to the chicken egg. So that's important too. So I think some of that information, I'd rather eat a less nutrient dense egg type A that was eating a healthy diet versus a deeper nutrient dense egg type B that had an inefficient diet, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a nutritional difference? Yes, but I mean, if you're really scrutinizing it, you can pinpoint a difference, but does it matter in practical application to one's daily intake of food? Not so much. It's best to have just quality food. The difference between the two eggs, in my opinion, I'm not a veterinarian or a scientist or a doctor, in my opinion, isn't going to be hugely impactful as compared to like other behavioral things for the human diet. Anyway. Okay, thank you for the input. Again, guys, welcome. It's question and answer night.
Yes,
She's smart. I just talk a lot.
Feel free. Please drop your questions.
Angela is very bright.
Is this topic? Is it about poultry?
Backyard birds and self-sufficiency. And we're going to go into that. I had a whole list in case nobody was talking. I had a whole list of good questions that I always deal with. I prefer quail over chicken eggs. Is that Susan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also prefer the quail eggs, the flavor over the chicken eggs.
Mm-hmm.
I think they taste better. And I still subconsciously / consciously tell myself they're more nutrient dense and better. But they do taste good. Today is the first day of spring.
Yes, it is.
She didn't know.
I was upset because my Google Calendar, it labels everything, and it did not label spring. I had to Google it to confirm on the internets that today is the first day, and yes, it is. Yeah, very happy about that.
Now, our friend Taco's listening, so she's more new to chickens.
I think she's had them for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
She just enjoys them and is interested in hatching and incubation and all that stuff.
Anybody dropping in here, Taco is a friend of ours on the internet who listens. So if you're new here, it's just one of the listeners. And since we're live, we're getting comments that you're probably not seeing afterwards.
Yes.
So a question I was going to say for her, should I start with chicks or adult birds? That's a question people new to chickens are asking, and they're running to the chicken store. What is it called? The tractor stores. Mm-hmm. People are running there looking for chicks.
They're ordering.
Right. So the question is, should I be getting the chicks or should I just look for adult chickens?
Depends what your goals are. And that's really the biggest answer for most things in life. But if you are wanting eggs immediately and you want to have eggs produced by your own animals rather than buying the eggs to consume, then you're going to want to get ready to lay hens.
Or just about ready to lay.
Yeah, but that's what that means. Ready to lay or just about ready.
Is that what you said? Ready
Uh-huh.
to lay? Oh, I thought you
Anyway,
meant laying.
so you can get almost, they're about to start laying or they're laying. And that could be whatever type of bird you want to use. There's lots of, there's khaki Campbell ducks lay a ton of eggs too, if you like duck eggs, but the quail eggs, the
I
chickens.
don't think anybody likes duck eggs.
Some people, it's like rare. Anyway, and if you get chicks, please, people who are new to chickens, please remember that chicks take a long time to grow. Chicken chicks, bigger birds, bigger than quail, take a long time to grow. So it's going to be, some of those really high production, bred specifically for high production might start laying 4 or 5 months, and some of the larger breeds, it might be like 6 or even 7 months, depending on the breed. So, so it might be an investment that you're waiting for these eggs. So keep in mind, you may then be buying eggs.
So in short,
Sorry.
chicks you have to raise. It take a while till they're getting to the maturity age for egg laying. Buying ready to lay hens is going to be challenging and more costly because somebody had to take care of them, feed them, and raise them up to that point, which is several months of time. They can be rather expensive.
Yeah.
And right now, under the current economic conditions, pressuring eggs and chicken costs, you're going to be paying probably more for a laying hen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So people are paying a premium because of this current situation with egg price. And people are having a hard time getting chicks because they're selling out. It's like a kind of like bad over here, bad over there.
Yeah, and we really do encourage jumbo quail.
Not because we sell them, although we do sell them, but
we raise them for ourselves.
We just sell them locally here, so it's not like we're shipping them all over the
But
country
they're
watching this.
High egg producers, and we showed you what their eggs look like a couple minutes ago. The hens are going to lay, around 300 eggs per year, and they're going to start laying in a matter of weeks. It's going to be like around 6 to 8 weeks versus months. Yeah. So some people some people they are like confident and ready to get their homestead going, and maybe they already have like their hutch system and coop everything set up, and they want to get chickens, but they're gonna get the peeps. So they get the chicks, and then they'll start, that whole growing process. And then if you want to have your own eggs like pretty darn quick, you could get a small covey of quail, and then they'll be producing eggs quickly. And you can
pretty
have
much
a small hutch.
within 2 months, like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So Verna was asking, do I eat the muscovy eggs? I don't. Like, I use them in cooking for sure.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't eat them plain because they just taste ducky. And I do use the whites.
It's just like a thicker like the way I always imagine it when I had my first duck egg was if you have it like with the yolk goopy, a cooked egg, like a fried egg, and if you take your toast to dunk in the yolk, if you're doing that with a chicken egg, it'll break open, it's runny, and you can slop it up with your toast. If it's a duck egg, it'll break open and it'll kind of ooze because it's thicker, and then you can scoop it up with your toast because it's thicker.
It has a different flavor.
Yeah.
The ducks have
creamier.
Well, does it? Yeah. So, like, they're two different animals, the duck and the chicken. The duck has a different digestive system. It's designed to digest different foods, and it absorbs and, I guess, creates different compounds as well through its metabolism that are in the egg that give it a different smell, taste, and texture.
Mm-hmm.
All that.
Yeah, they're good. Some people like them.
I use the whites, like, when we have them.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to have these high-protein meals in the morning. So I'll crack the egg white out of the duck and keep the eggs, the duck egg whites. And I'll use the yolks for cooking in like muffins or stuff. So Susan said, I think duck eggs are okay scrambled or in baking. I don't like them fried. Mm-hmm. Same.
Yeah, same.
And then Marta said, I don't remember if I've ever eaten a duck egg. Mm. Well, you don't have to try. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I'm sure somebody likes them, but
a lot of people use them in baking.
I'm sure somebody does like them. Food is cultural. If you grew up eating duck eggs, they're probably delicious for them. But you should
taste them, Verna.
You
so
can find them.
Experience it.
If you're in a rural area, and you drive around, or if you look on like a rural Facebook page, there'll be like duck eggs for sale or duck eggs somewhere.
Yeah, because the khaki Campbell, like people raise the khaki Campbell ducks for eggs. I mean, they're egg producers. They're high egg producers. So you see people have a bunch of those, and I imagine. I mean, we've seen stands for duck eggs. I've been told they make good egg salad and deviled eggs, says Susan.
Oh, you know what? That's probably.
You should try that.
I should try that because at that point you're mixed up with a whole different spices
Yeah.
and other flavors that kind of.
And generally, duck eggs
Cover
tend to
up the
be a
duck
little
flavor.
larger, or like the extra large size chicken eggs. It depends on the duck.
Yes, indeed. I'm going to ask you a question, and again, people, please drop a question in, and if you're watching afterwards, put in a question. I like getting questions. I like teaching. I like knowledge and education, and information is great. Quail eggs are best as deviled eggs. Agree. Not as messy to eat. I like making them as deviled eggs. Remember? They're tiny, but then you eat a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So my question for you was, this is a good question. Again, because everybody's getting the new chickens. How do I introduce a new chicken to my flock? I have a new hen. It's basically a laying hen. It's laying eggs.
So it's
And I have a bunch of birds already.
So
Should I just throw them in and see what happens?
you have an existing mature flock of chickens, and
Yes.
you want to add a new mature chicken.
Yes.
So
Is that a good thing to just
there
toss them in?
are lots of different ways people do this. Introduce new birds after quarantine, after watching the new bird and making sure it's good to go and healthy and de-stressed and mellow. Quarantine.
How do I quarantine, I said.
Is this a new question? So,
Well, you said after I quarantine.
right.
So I have to quarantine
So
my bird?
you definitely, if you are integrating new birds to an existing flock, yes, you want to keep your new birds in a separate area altogether, minimum 2 weeks. They do say like 40 days, if you want to be like very thorough. But the point in doing that is your new bird is stressed. It's stressed from this transition, this moving from one location to a new location that's completely foreign. It's going from one area of soil and dirt that has its the organisms and different biodiversity in that
That they're hardy
environment
to.
that they're hardy to, they're used to, and now to a new one with foreign organisms that could, if the bird is stressed, suppress with a suppressed immune system. With a stressed bird, their immune system will become stressed. Then being introduced to new organisms can take advantage of their system.
Also, they're probably going to be eating a different diet. They're
Yep.
going to have a new food, and that's
Yep.
kind of a stressor to their system.
Yeah, everything's new. Like new food, you're new, your voice is new to them. The way you're going to be handling them and interacting with them will be different from the previous owner or breeder.
I wanted to mention, when you hear the word quarantine, you think of the horror movies.
Yes.
And you're doing that because there's a deadly pathogen coming in, and we got to quarantine, and you got the little white suit. That's not true. What you're quarantining is
You can say
some-
isolate.
It's like she's saying, you're now adapting the bird to its new environment. Yes, you're also protecting the other birds from a potential pathogen, a potential disease from the new guy. That's true. You want to make sure that the birds you're bringing in, if it is ill, that it's not going to infect the other birds. But also, you're not just quarantining for that, you're quarantining them to acclimate them to the new area so they don't get sick from the new area as well.
Yeah, so
I don't think a lot of people generally would think or know to do this. I don't think that's common knowledge. Because I've heard a lot of people, they get their chickens and they just
throw
toss them all in
I
together.
know. Oh my gosh. So also, Christopher sort of mentioned, they could be carrying something that's not showing symptoms because the bird was like not
Then you have a
stressed.
horror movie. Then you have the
So,
chicken horror movie.
Now that it's stressed because it's in this transition state, the immune system can get suppressed just like humans. And then if it has any kind of nasty organisms or like some sort of sickness or illness that's latent, that's just in there, then it'll overrun, and then you can see if you need to treat it for something. Also, sometimes they might have lice or some sort of mites
I had lice once.
the previous owner didn't notice, didn't see, and thought they were fine. Or maybe they knew they were there and didn't say anything. But it's a great time for you to examine the bird thoroughly, make sure they're mite and lice free, and treat, if needed, before integrating them to your current flock.
Berna left a brilliant point, which I really like because it's very sciencey. People don't realize that soil biodiversity can be different even if they live right next door.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Quite
interesting.
true.
So now his main question, though, was how do you integrate a new bird to your existing flock?
I forgot to even ask that.
So people will share all sorts of ways to do it. I'm going to share my ideal way that I like to do it. With standard layer birds.
It's like a gang initiation.
Yeah.
Get in there, see how...
They're more alert. They're higher energy type birds,
Yes.
chickens. And I like to compare them to like the bantam, like silkies and Polish chickens. They're smaller. They have like feathers over their face. So the integration's their energy is a little different. But standard layers, typical breeds, heritage breeds, you can, when you're ready, you can put them in the coop at night, and because it's dark and everybody's just chilling out and sleeping. I would recommend, if you have a coop light, extra lighting in the coop, I would turn that off for the first night or two, so that they're not really they don't see each other. Because chickens, they can't really see at night. They'll just like sit, and they might hear each other. And then in the morning, you can, you let them out and they'll all go out. But I would highly recommend adding objects to your run. This is like the big thing. Add foreign items to your run. Like a board, slanted board, a chair, a bucket that's upside down that has weighted, like just random stuff.
Tire.
So then, because what's going to go on is your existing flock, they may get territorial because it's their space. If you put all these new items in there, they're going to be like, what is going on? They're going to get really confused, which is the point. They're going to be balking about these items to each other and really fixated on this stuff.
And they don't notice the new guy just came in.
Yeah, and the new guy doesn't know anything's different because this is the first day in there.
He's there.
So you can put them in at night, and then...
So then, like, a few days later, the chicken's like, who's that dude?
They just...
I don't know.
They don't even... Yeah,
I thought
it's really...
he's been here, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
And they don't fight. So it reduces the stress. It doesn't have that stressor between the birds.
Yeah. Now, with other breeds, like silkies, silkies in particular, probably the Polish, I would not recommend putting them into the coop at night because... like that, because they're very docile, low energy, and it's just not as easy for them to see. Even if you trim around, their energy level is very different than layer breeds. So what will happen is, if you put them in the coop at night, they wake up in the morning, you let them out, all the egg-laying breeds will run out of the coop, and your new silkies will be like, I guess this is our world now. They're going to just stay in the coop. They're not really going to know their space. They won't really come out with the other ones because they're just confused, disoriented. And then the other ones, it'll be easier for the other ones to notice them, coming down the ramp or coming out once they finally find the exit. And the idea is just to make sure, they're more unnoticed. So with the silkies or like the Polish type breeds, I would recommend just putting them into the run with foreign objects added to the space, putting them into the run during the day so you can see what's going on. And the same thing will happen. They'll go unnoticed. But it's very important to know your breed temperaments and personalities.
So learn about your bird.
Yeah, get familiar with your birds. Make sure you don't have overly dominant ones because that can make it very difficult to integrate new birds.
Yep.
Where they may they might just bully the birds, and that could be a problem. And also, it's important to make sure you have adequate space so everybody can get away from each other.
One last thing. Verna made a good point. She said you could do the same with quail. Quail. So yes, quail.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're raising quail, you might be introducing some birds to the covey covey. A group of quails, a covey. Most people still call it a flock if they don't know, but that's the word. What we do, so what do we usually do? I think,
Quail?
yeah, we're not manipulating the environment. We just take everybody out.
Yeah, so first of all,
Take them out of their hutch.
the quail, I like to wait personally until the new birds, I want to make sure they're like 5 weeks old. Because once they're 5 weeks old, they're comparable in size to the mature birds. They're still growing, but they're much more similar looking, and they're already in, they're starting to mature. So juveniles, they will have that like, flee and fear and scared mentality when bombarded with stuff, whereas the ones that are close to maturity or are maturing, they're going to be able to hold their ground.
Yeah.
So the quail, around 5 weeks old, what I like to do is I take everybody out of the hutch and then put them in a cage, just something temporary for a couple hours, and give them water. And I like to do it closer to the evening. And then once it's getting a little dark, just like the chickens, they start to calm down and they're not as active. It's a instinctual thing. So then put everybody in. And then it's dark, and then usually they're fine.
They acclimate to each other.
Yeah, but the same thing. Sometimes there are some quail that can be temperamental. So I think there are a few different methods that people can do with the quail.
Let me know if anybody here has introduced quail, what you've done, like techniques you've used, if you had success, or if you've noticed anything. Sometimes it's hard to notice. The bird behaviors, you may not notice one bickering, and you may notice it's very similar to their normal behaviors. It might be subtle. Yes, we're going to say, start putting them in a box near dusk after you've added the ones from the cages. I'm sorry, we're on the phone here, and I have a monitor down there with
the comments.
With the comments popping up.
Yeah, and
Cool.
So sometimes, just to finish that, if you end up with one quail that's just too dominant and it's just bullying and being difficult, then take that one out and keep that one out for a couple hours and do the same routine with waiting till dusk to put it back in to try and throw off the whole hierarchy. Because if it's up higher in the hierarchy, you kind of want to push it off and get it down, so then it kind of has to figure out where it is. It's like a newbie again. But yeah.
Cool. All right, awesome. I'm going to ask questions pertaining now, and again, you guys, please ask your questions. Kept them in a box for 30 minutes, and after all of them together, then put them into the clean cage.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep. Put all the new birds and the old birds together.
It doesn't take long to kind of shuffle their brains up. Angela's looking at her kitty cat over there.
Yeah, making sure she's not getting into trouble.
All right, so I'm going to move on to another subject for chicken people and quail people. Feeding and nutrition. All right, so if you guys have any questions about food or nutrition, please ask. We know a sufficient amount about that. We do lots of study, research, and compiling of data pertaining to poultry nutrition. We've learned quite a lot, I would say, over the last year or two.
The last several years.
Yeah. Doing a lot of information. All right, so feeding and nutrition, what are you looking for in a poultry feed? So you're going to find a variety of poultry feeds. You're going to find low-end filler feeds, which are made cheap, and they're bulk feeds. You're going to find the middle ground kind of specialty feeds, which is I guess your combox with the whole grain mixture. And then you have what we make is kind of like that. It's a boutique, more of a specialized small batch, which is very similar, which we're making whole grain feed. This is a whole grain based with nutritive additives, proteins, and amino acids. This is a long one. I'm going to read this. My quail are on the ground in a mini greenhouse aviary. After new ones come out of the brooder, they go into a breeder cage when they are 5 to 6 weeks old. I put the cage in the aviary, and after a few days, I open them up to let them go scuttle around with everybody else.
Oh, that sounds really good.
Yeah, that sounds
the
like a great
aviaries, they're nice because you have more a natural environment. People like to put plants and objects for them to go and kind of have like normal, like if they were living
Natural
on the
environment.
ground. Yeah, and that's really helpful. It gives them stuff to do, especially when you're, adding new ones. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we were talking about about what you're looking for in a poultry feed. There's different varieties of poultry feed or chicken feed and quail feed. If you do not understand, and I don't, my philosophy is nobody's dumb. Like, humans are exceptionally intelligent. We just don't have knowledge in every area. So hopefully you speak to somebody who's knowledgeable in an area that you may not have knowledge in. And we're never going to know everything. So poultry nutrition, what we see intuitively that makes sense to us may not be the correct answer. So when you're looking at a poultry feed, you're not thinking, oh, there are like essential amino acids I really need to know about. There's fats and protein amounts that need to be in there. The feed should be fresh because it does deteriorate, and I want to have healthy birds. So what am I going to be looking for? You're looking for, just like you're feeding yourself or your kids, you want healthy food with a good nutritional profile that the animal can use that's actually going to be absorbed. So if you're looking at like a scratch grain, that's an empty kind of food, kind of like potato chips for us. It's a lot of calories and energy, but it lacks, most of the time it lacks the essential nutrients and the nutrition that the bird needs. So we give them scratch, which is good for them because it occupies them, it gives them something to do, promotes their natural foraging behavior, but that should be layered with a actual complete feed. Okay, does this make sense?
And controlled amounts. Because it will fatten them up. Some people like to give them that in particular in the wintertime because there's lots of corn in it. It's like crushed corn, and the corn will give them an extra added layer of fat just to kind of help with.
Yeah, I mean, this could be hours long talking about the feed. So in the best case scenario, they're free ranging during the summer and spring and fall, and they're eating bugs and little critters they find and seeds and nuts and grasses, and they're having a variety of food because that's what they do naturally in their ancestral environment. So they should be eating that, but in many cases they don't. So we have to supplement the diet with something healthy because we want the birds to have nice feathers, healthy eggs. They're not wheezing and lethargic. They have energy. They interact with the other birds. So I'll tell you about the kitchen scraps in a second. So yeah, we want to have a food that's very similar, if we can, to their natural diet. So we have to provide that for them. Okay, so what are we doing? There's a million ways to answer this. Well, maybe not a million, but there's a bunch of ways to answer this. But good things to have in a chicken feed are like animal proteins, fly, larva, the mealworms, fish meal. These are complete proteins for the bird. And of course, if you're doing layers, you're going to have calcium in there. The proper amount of fats and protein and carbohydrates, just like for the human. And something interesting too, you guys, animals process, this is important, listen to this, because a lot of people don't realize this. Animals process plants and metabolize them very differently than the human, okay? The chicken, the cows, I mentioned this in a previous video probably. So when we think about getting, and I told you this, when we think about eating vitamin A, I show you a carrot, you're like, oh, it's got a lot of vitamin A in it. That's partially true. And this is where the animals come into play. So we as humans, when we eat this carrot, we process the beta carotene into its usable form, which is called retinol. That's the vitamin A that we use, but we need to synthesize it out of the beta carotene. We do it very inefficiently as humans at about 24 to 1. So if I give you 21 parts, I'm only able to produce like 1 part or so, 20 parts, maybe 1 part. Where the chicken's doing it much more efficiently at about 4 to 1. So I give them 4 parts, they're spitting out 1. So many times more efficient. So they're converting I don't want to lose anybody on this. The whole point is the animal kingdom have a specialized dietary system for plants because they're hard to digest. That's why it's very fibrous for us, and that tissue's hard for us to digest. It has a cell wall, okay? Plants have a cell wall, and the compounds, these fibrous compounds that are hard to digest. The chickens, the ruminants, they're very good at it, and that's why the feed is important for them, because they're going to utilize those nutrients. They're going to synthesize the proper ones, and they're going to deposit them in the meat, fat, and eggs.
That we consume.
And it's good for them, and they need it too, and it's going to be healthy. And it's good for us once it's synthesized in their body. So all that, I'm not going to get into the whole should I be a vegetarian stuff. That's a personal issue. But is healthy animal products, are they nutritively viable for a healthy diet in humans? Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think there's very much debate on that. When we're looking at poor nutrition from animal products, it's usually coming from animals on a monoculture diet of eating just soy or just corn. And they're going to have bad health, just like somebody who lives on Doritos.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on here. Verna said something. Do you feed your birds kitchen scraps? Yes and no. Yes. So you got to be careful with chicken scraps. I'm sure you know this, Verna. You're quite wise, but like people don't realize some of the things we feed the chickens can be quite dangerous, like onions, I expect, and green tomatoes, tomato plants. When you're pulling out old plants from the garden. I like to give the chickens greens, like fresh things, but I got to make sure they're safe for the chickens. So before you start throwing everything in there to use them as a garbage disposal, make sure it's not harmful for them.
Mm-hmm. And make sure it's not something that is going to become like a fattening food for them, that they're eating the food that their body needs, like whatever the main food is that you feed them. And then if you're feeding them scraps, that it's either healthy stuff or if it's like not so healthy stuff.
It's once in a while.
That it's like you treat it like scratch, like it's not a lot you give them.
Yeah, the other thing too is not just toxin potential, like toxins from the plants, but also the potentiality for sauerkraut. Things that are moldy or super sugary can promote sauerkraut, which we talked about a million times, but if you don't know, it's part of the chicken, makes them sick.
Yeah, it's a big pain to heal.
I'll just pick this up. So here's what I'm doing. I keep putting down here. You can feed them back their own eggs as long as they don't look like eggs. Quite true. You got to squish them up, right? Or squish them up and cook them. And explore. I rinse, dry, and grind the shells and give it back to them as calcium supplement when they're laying. My dog loves quail eggs. That's awesome. I used to eat the chicken eggs when I was supplementing calcium years ago.
He means the shell.
Yeah. No tomato, pepper, or any other nightshades of family greens. Excellent. Correct. Like potato, I guess. Anyway, is that
the
a
green
nightshade?
potato. I don't know. I don't remember.
The potato is. But don't feed them potatoes. Green potatoes.
The green.
Yeah. I did a video on this channel. It was really short. It was like top 5 things never to feed your chickens. Which is talking about some of the compounds in these plants that can harm the birds. Yeah, we don't want to do that. Because then you don't know. If you don't know what you're doing and somebody feeds their birds, what do you call it? Feeds their birds a plant that might be bad for them, they may think they're sick from an organism rather than some kind of plant compound. And something here, I guess I lost it. Something happened. It was on there and gone.
Another thing not to feed them.
It's not coming up on my thingy. Okay, anyway. So the diet's important, the nutrition's important. Anybody new to chickens, just because the bag looks healthy doesn't mean it is. It's just like people food. It's a lot of marketing goes into that, and marketing costs money, so it looks like it's healthy and it's expensive. Ooh, it's got to be healthy. That's not always the case.
Yeah, it's important to look at the label, just like people do with their their dogs and cats. The protein source should be at the top listed, and if it's an animal protein, then those types of proteins will likely be fish meal, which is a high protein source. It might be like seafood type things, crab, that sort of thing, crushed or into a meal. There's even swine meat that they use. I like pigs. And then also the amount of protein is important. Like for a layer, you want it to be around the 16 to 18%, and that's going to support their whole body system, giving them it's going to support their structure, their form, and then also we, like Christopher already mentioned, big fan of focusing on whole grain ingredients left in its original form, like a whole.
Now, why is that a good idea? Can I explain this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So why do we do whole grains? We produce whole grains. Why is it whole grains? Whole grains don't deteriorate. So like if you have a seed, you can plant it 10 years later, it might probably still grow. You know, their seeds last forever. Why is that? Why is it? Well, they have the coating, they have the,
Shell?
what's it called? The testa, the outside shell, right? And it protects it and it keeps it viable. It does not break down with oxygen. So they last a long time.
So this is all the
So
nutrients.
that's
content.
one reason why we give it to the chickens, because you can store it for months. It's perfectly fine, as long as it's not hot, wet, and etc. Like what's
Right.
going to cause
Proper
oxidation
temperature.
and deterioration. The other reason is the chicken's designed for whole things, whole grains, whole pieces of whatever it is they're eating, because they have a gizzard. It's a very powerful muscle, and that needs to be exercised. So when you're feeding them squishy mush, which is a common feed, which is the pellets, right? Pellets, when they get into the crop and they're taken down into the stomach, they're made wet and they're sitting there for a while and they break apart. So the gizzard's not really doing much work. It'd be like it's not even like us, or like us never chewing, essentially.
Yeah, well,
kind of.
it's like eating processed foods that are softer.
Yeah, so they're not going to be exercising their gizzard, and that thing certainly should be exercised because.
But of course, with pelletized foods, crumble foods, or mashes, it's ground up. And that's going to, this goes right into her comment, it's going to expose those ingredients to oxygen. You can
that. Verna said this is very important. When you grind the grains, it releases the oils, and they can go rancid very rapidly, very quickly.
Yeah,
they do. And
so the nutrient content in each ingredient, that in each seed or type of ingredient that they use, the guaranteed analysis on the bag, it tells you it has this much protein, this much fiber, this much, all those different things, fats, and the whole nitty-gritty breakdown. But that is of the ingredients before it's ground up. So then it's the ingredients are ground up.
Yeah, that's a big
and
thing. It's true.
Made into pellets or made into crumbles, and it's become, because it's ground, it's exposed to oxygen. There's the nutrition in each ingredient is now going to start deteriorating because it's exposed to oxygen. It's no longer contained in that shell.
Right. So let's say my original product has quantity 10 of a nutrient.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I'm just using these very general terms so it's easy to understand. I have this grain and it has about a quantity of 10 nutrient in it. I grind it up because I'm making it into pellets and I heat it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now
which is another
oxidizing, bringing oxygen in, and degrading it.
Mm-hmm.
Now the same mass, the same weight, has that compound. Instead of a unit of 10, it's significantly lower. It could be whatever, half, 5, 7. It's less than is what I'm getting at. And as time progresses, like Verna said, it's going to start deteriorating with oxygen. Oxygen's very corrosive, and it'll start breaking down the compound. And that's true. It's not like just fad talk. This is all documented, well known, and
because this is a process to do, and usually pelletized food and crumble food is it's going to different. It has a journey to get to the store. By the time it gets to the store and is on that shelf, it's already several months old. So it's not fresh. If it's a whole grain, even if it is on the shelf in a box store and it's whole grains, it's still going to be fresh because it's not been compromised. So.
Yeah, and the chickens, like, to us, it's like, oh, I can't imagine giving them whole grains. It's probably hard for them to eat. I don't want to eat that. Like, to us, yeah, I wouldn't want to eat the whole grains. But the chickens, they like them. They prefer them. They like them a lot. And it's good for them.
I do want to say, it is, you don't feel, bad or anything like that about pellets or crumbles.
Yeah, those are okay.
I think it...
There's just a difference between the different feeds.
Yeah, there's a difference. It's good to know. And personally, I'm totally a fan of, you can supplement your feed. If you want to have your main feed be the whole grains, but maybe you just want it to kind of last longer, maybe you have a bunch of chickens, you can supplement with a, high protein pellets or crumble or something like that. But yes, the main food, I think, the whole grains.
I like to say it's science, but it's not rocket science. Like there's some gray area. You don't have to.
Yeah.
I think we get, at least I know a lot of people, especially my brain, we like to have a very thin window of, error. Like I expect this. And so that doesn't really apply. So yeah, like with chicken feed, yeah, it's great to have whole grains. It's great to have fly larvae and mealworms and fish. That's all expensive though.
Yeah.
So the animal proteins are very expensive. So a lot of people can't afford, it's not going to be budgeted in to be giving these animals super expensive feed because it has these proteins, and that's extremely reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
So they're eating regular, pellet feed, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever's within the budget of the person, that's fine. If you wish, you can supplement some of these things on your own to the chicken's diet.
Mm-hmm.
If you wish, you can look into that. One of the things we like to do occasionally, I think we only did it once last year, fishing.
Yeah,
Scooping up.
We were. It was like 100-degree day, super hot, and we wanted to go play in the stream. So we took nets and buckets, caught minnows.
Yeah.
For the fish. For the chickens.
For the chickens. But then again, some scraps, if you know your scraps, might be appropriate.
I think there was a comment.
These place. When you grind grains, Susan said, "Great explanation." Thank you. Hopefully it was clear. Like, these are very complex subjects if you really get into them. That's why, like, when I do these videos for you guys, when we try to teach these things, they're really, really, if you dive into these subjects, they're very, very complex. Like, you could actually take a lot of college courses to learn in depth about many of the things we talk about here. But I try to present them simple enough to be, applied for a person, so they make a cognitive connection. They make like a contextual understanding of what we're talking about, so it makes sense and it's easy to apply. And it's like, oh, that's too much. Mm-hmm. So anyway, yeah, that was a long explanation of what should I look for in a quality poultry feed. But food is going to keep the animal. That's its main. That's how it stays alive. You got to give it. So learning about the food's important. Not feeling bad about what you're feeding it. If you can't afford.
Yeah, do what you can.
Do what you can.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's like a stepping stone type thing. You can upgrade when you can.
And remember, food, just like for people, is only one component of the animal's overall well-being. Mm-hmm. If we ate well but we're stressed all the time and don't sleep properly and we're fighting, it doesn't matter that we're eating well. That sort of thing. It's the same with the chickens. If they're in a stressed environment, if they have dirty living conditions, if they're not overcrowded, if they're isolated or they're not interactive with other birds or even people, that's not good for them. That's not going to.
Yeah, they're very social. For them.
So just like us, in many ways, animals have similar needs in their own animal groups. Okay, cool. You know what? I'll mention this real quick. This is a question that I put in here. BRB.
I don't know.
What does that mean? Bring your own booze? That's BYOB. BRB. I should know this. I feel like, you have to tell me what that means. I'm sure it's something I should know, but I don't know why it's not coming to my head. I'll be like, oh. Anyway, so another question that kind of went with that.
Be right back.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's Susan. That's young people talk. Like, I don't. What is that called? Where you type in letters?
I don't know, because I don't
so
do it.
Old. Texting speak. All right. Anyway, are store-bought feeds good enough, or should I mix my own? Yeah, store-bought feeds are fine, but can you mix your own? I always advise people either buy our high-quality feed here at the Dinosaur Omelet, or mix your own grains. Mix your own grains. It's a lot cheaper. I think you're the young one here. I'll be 50. When is this?
Oh, next month.
Next month. I'll be, what's today? So it's like a month or so away.
21st.
I'll be 1.5 centuries old. So anyway.
I would say if you are going to be mixing your own feed, look into what the birds need, because oftentimes you'll YouTube it, and I'll be 67 in a couple of weeks.
Happy early birthday too.
Yeah, happy early birthday.
Gosh. April babies are the good ones.
There's a lot of YouTube videos on save on cost, mix your own feed, and then they'll have like 3 or 4 ingredients. And the birds, they need certain they have nutritional requirements to function daily.
I'm so busy, but I'm making a video on that, like debunking all those stupid, cheap chicken feed instructional videos, which is actually killing the chickens.
Yeah, so it is important. I do encourage you to do that, but I would look into it. Look into it first. You can give them, snacks and stuff as you're learning. But yeah, because it will affect them. Like they'll end up with loose stools. It can affect their, just the bodily function, the production, and everything. So that's that.
All right, I'm just looking through my questions. Susan, you are a couple months older than me. Oh.
Wow.
Everybody's like close in age. All right, so how can I tell if my birds have a nutritional deficiency? So that's a good question, and that's a toughie because nutritional deficiencies can resemble illnesses.
Verna is going to be 67 on Mother's Day.
Oh, happy
That's
Mother's
so
Day and
cool.
birthday.
Yeah, that's really neat.
That's so appropriate because that's when everybody plants their plants. Remember, when should I plant my vegetables? On Mother's Day.
Or wait
like
to bring
first
them back.
Sunday after.
Yeah.
Something like this.
See, Chris, you are on the younger end.
Thank you. Time goes by very quickly. Kids at home, if you're young, just like that, it just flies by.
Live with intention.
Yes, make everything intentional.
Do you have your seedlings going yet?
I do. I have some going. I'm going to start some more this week because you start them around this time. But yeah, I have my peppers, a whole bunch of plants. I got to transplant them because they're getting their true leaves, and that's when you transplant them into the bigger pots.
What was your question that you had asked? I forget. That it wasn't.
Oh, if I have planting starts Easter here, have you started your sweet potato slips yet?
It's not quite.
Now, I watched your video on sweet potato slips.
They've had extensive conversation for anyone wondering about the potatoes.
Yeah, I haven't started my sweet potatoes. But they do good. I mean, the potatoes grow quick. All right. How can I tell if my birds have a nutrient deficiency? Nutrient deficiencies and illnesses may resemble each other, particularly like lethargy.
Yeah, remember, we are not vets. I love sweet potatoes from slips. Ooh. Yeah. That's a good idea. But deficient, did you want to comment on that?
What? Giving that medical disclaimer?
No.
We're not veterinarian professionals.
I already did.
But so nutritional deficiencies versus actual illnesses from a pathogen, like a pathogen source. I think in either case, you're going to want to isolate the bird because you want to be safe. If it's a nutritional deficiency, you may not know that until you've.
Well, you can, and you will notice some things. For example, like I mentioned, their stool may be like runny. It's not supposed to be runny. If they have too much of something, like I think it's fiber or something. And the earlobe on the chicken, it should be a certain color. And if it has changed, if it's an earlobe color that's usually a bright something, some blue, purple, whatever, then being deficient in something, or maybe the body just isn't pooling nutrients properly from the food, the earlobe may go pale color, white. Like a silky is supposed to have a bright blue earlobe, and then it can go
I forgot
white.
Something very important to mention about nutritional deficiencies, seeing that in a chicken. Look at the food. Because what we're doing is we want to eliminate, is this an illness or this nutritional deficiency? I'm going to look at the food and, I know if I don't know the food, I don't know if the food's providing the appropriate amount of nutrients. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so
like
understand...
epidemiology. We're looking at the cause of illness, so we're tracking it back. So I think my chicken has a nutrient deficiency. Well, how does that happen? From not eating the appropriate nutrients. So how do we know if that happened? Well, I'm going to check the bag. Does the bag at least have the appropriate nutrients? Oops, I didn't realize I'm feeding this thing just a bunch of wheat middlings and corn. It's not getting the... So, yeah, it has a nutrient deficiency. I learned. I just found out by looking at what I thought was a sick chicken. It's actually nutrient deficient. Now, if I look at my chicken feed bag and, oh, yeah, this is a really good quality feed, and they eat it, and he's been eating all his feed, it could, it may possibly be, of course, an illness. So that's why I said you want to isolate them in either case, because you don't want a sick chicken around other chickens.
Yeah, nutrient deficiency, though, could take time to figure out. So you don't want to isolate for too long and have the chicken lonely. So if it's,
Well, that's true.
So you have to be careful.
When we isolate the silkies, there's usually a buddy around.
Yeah. And then also the feather, the quality of the feathers. It takes a lot of energy for them to grow their feathers, their new feathers, and to keep that nice sheen on their feathers. So if you have a chicken that's just, let's say you have several of them molted, did a heavy molt, they shed their feathers and they're growing new ones, and you have one or two that's just not growing the feathers back, or they just like perpetually look not good. It could be that particular chicken, maybe they are getting proper nutrition, but that particular chicken just might need an extra boost in protein because their body, it just is needs to work harder than its flock mates to grow those feathers. So sometimes individuals need extra boost of more protein.
Did you know? You got to tell them. The best way to learn this stuff is to experience.
Yeah.
Isn't that true? Like you learn, you start to see, I'm not good like you are. Like you can tell what's wrong with the chicken because you have experience.
Right, that's true.
Like the more you experience and work with the animals.
And it's important to be looking at your birds regularly so you can notice these differences.
Verna mentioned one of my favorite chicken conspiracies of the last few years. Can you guess what it is? The great egg stoppage. Everybody's chickens stopped laying eggs. So Verna said there was a problem with TSC feed. It said it had all the nutrients in it, but suddenly the birds stopped laying. We found the solution to that. Man, do I remember that, because we had just started doing our TikTok thing, and everybody was...
Yeah, that's right.
And we got a whole bunch of... I got like 500,000 views on the first video I did. Remember that? And we're like, oh, wait a minute. Is there any way to like capitalize off of this? Like that really went... And it was the same time, it was a while ago, I wasn't really organized, but I remember everybody asking about that issue.
Didn't
the chicken
some people
feed.
Test the feed?
Some were tested. I actually looked into this. So some were tested. And I don't know, like some of them, yeah, they were...
Are they substituting with fillers?
Oh, I don't know. Like I had a whole bunch of theories because this was during the time of...
The shipping as well.
Cook lentils and rice together, feed it with the feed, and within 2 weeks they were laying again. Oh, wow. Awesome, man. Because a complete protein profile. Yeah, so I looked into that, and like my own personal thought, like my intuition said they're probably getting, because there was a shipping crisis at the time, maybe they're getting secondary market stuff or cheap ingredients. Maybe the ingredients are just sitting so long that they're deteriorating. But I was going with like logical economic reasons. I don't know what it was. It was due to them not being able to get some of the minerals. They were unable to get it. I didn't know that. I looked really deep into that. I tried to get information on that. And I got some lab tests and some other independent tests. But, that's very interesting. Yeah, I remember that. People were like, my chickens stopped laying. They're trying to kill us. I was like, there's better ways than stopping the chickens from laying eggs. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, lentils and rice.
Verna mentioned the lentils and rice. I cook lentils all the time for my human consumption.
Yeah, it's a very good thing to eat.
All right, I'm going to do a couple more, and then this one actually pretty smoothly for an hour. We usually do an hour, Verna. I can't be a trooper like you do, because she's there for a while. You hear how much I talk. My mouth is going dry. All right, so we talked about some nutrition. Any other nutritional things to mention? My ducks love cooked lentils. Oh.
Yeah.
I've been begging for a claw duck.
They are so cute.
I'm not allowed to
And
get
they do a
into-
lot of quacking. They're like, quack, 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 quack. They're very loud with their tiny voices.
But I beg for everything. Like once a week, I'm begging for something new.
He wants an ostrich. He wants an emu. He wants a capybara. Is that how you say that?
Yeah.
He wants a lot of animals.
Thank you. Oh, you're welcome, Taco. Thanks for listening, hon. Yeah. You're always welcome to send questions to me. You can write to me on the Facebook, too. We do a lot of chat on there. If you have any questions. Oh, I met her on the TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I haven't been over there too much. Because they're short form videos. And people have no attention spans over there. I just don't like that.
We just haven't focused too much on it. I know it is popular to lots of people, though.
But they're short form videos. Anyway. What do I want to talk about? Anything else? Oh, you know what? We never even discussed like self-sufficiency outside of poultry because I really wanted to talk about that in this video. So I'll end with a general discussion on property size. Lentils and whole grain rice is good for birds. If they quit laying, just try treating them with rice, lentils, and if they start laying again, sorry it faded off. If they start laying again, it could be because the bag didn't have the trace minerals. Wow.
Yeah.
Very good information. Thanks, Verna. So it'd be like that's the magic, that's the key.
Mm-hmm.
So you're giving them that, and then it's working again. So that's an indicator of what was deficient.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, that was very good.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about self-sufficiency and sustainability. And if you guys have any questions, I'm going to transition into this whole homesteading thing in general right now, real quick, because it's been an hour. But I want to mention, and we mentioned this before, I guess a year or two ago, do I need 5 acres or 20 acres to produce food? And the answer is absolutely not. Of course not. You don't need a lot of property. We have a very small postage stamp. It's kind of small.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a huge piece of property, but we have a garden, we have the chickens, we have my baby pig who runs around as my pet. But we make use of the space and try to be efficient with it as much as possible. One of the things that I'm really grateful for is we have a natural spring running. So she can get buckets of water. She looks like we live near the Amish. So she looks like an Amish lady every day gathering her pails of water. And I have a hand pump. So we have 3 wells. We have the house well, which is electric. We have the hand pump well, which is a backup, which we use when the electric goes out. And we have a spring. But the question is, do I need a ton of land? The water's important. That's why I was talking about it so much. So you want to have a good water source. With land size, now this is an issue, again, which can be a very large subject about, setting up your property or, doing a, what do you call it? A regenerative system in your yard or in your property. But you don't need a ton of space. What you do need is proper planning.
Yes.
So you don't need a ton of space, you need proper planning.
Yeah, a friend of ours, he's in Philadelphia, and he has a decent sized yard for living there. But yeah, he has a slope, and he organized it with proper planning. So he's got vegetables growing and growing up, and then he's got rabbits. They don't need a lot of space. He's got the jumbo quail. They don't need a lot of space. And I think he even did a couple meat birds because yeah.
Because meat birds are quiet and they grow quick.
Around. Yeah, you just rotate them.
So with a small piece of land, proper planning is really the key. So when people we did a whole video on this, I guess a year and a half ago, about choosing a homestead property. I was doing it in an apartment.
Yeah.
I remember, yeah, for sure. And you can. People are like, oh, I can't grow nothing. It's like, if you put me in a place, in an apartment, yes, I can grow something. Mm-hmm. Especially if you have a deck.
Yeah, or some good windows. But a little deck.
I can produce there. It's nice to have a space. Not always a lot of space is better, depending on, again, of course, what your goals are or who you are.
Right.
Whenever you have more space, you have more farmland, more property, you're scaling, and things don't always scale proportionally. Costs don't scale proportionally. Equipment doesn't scale proportionally. Like if my homestead currently is size 1, and I'm going to multiply it 4 times the size, it'll be size 4. It may cost not exactly 4 times as much to maintain it. It may cost 10 times as much or half as much. It depends on what's going on. Same with equipment. The equipment cost difference is not going to scale at the same size, if that makes sense. So that's really where planning comes in. And then you want to plan accordingly to whatever size you're doing it. So if you have a small property, it's not an issue if you make the appropriate goal. Okay? Are we going to raise 100 cows here? No, we can't raise 100
so
cows.
that's why we opt for the Muscovy ducks. You just need a couple breeders, and they're quiet. They don't need a lot of space, and they don't need a pond or a huge water source. They're happy with a big thing of a bucket or a tub of water that they can
drink. Or if you're feeling friendly, a kiddie pool.
Yeah, but they don't really swim.
Yeah, they're not like
other
duck
breeds.
ducks.
Yeah, they don't. They really go down. They'll interact with the water more if they're laying on eggs because they have to wet their feathers to go and sit on the eggs halfway through the incubation process.
Yeah, but if you guys are young people and you're thinking, I would like to one day have my own piece of property. People get married and they want to have the property and live like that fantasy life. Look into it. I remember when the COVID hit and people were buying homestead properties. They were looking at all the Instagram pictures. Oh my God, I'll wear a white dress and hold a lamb in my garden. It'll be pretty. Yeah, okay, great. But once you're doing it in real life and reality hits, it's completely different. Yeah. That's why you want to do in-depth investigation into what you're doing and realize how much work is actually involved. What's my time commitment? What's the financial commitment? What's actually happening here? So I can plan accordingly and then ask myself, perception versus reality. Now I know reality. Am I willing to accept reality? So here, even though we have a small patch, it's constant stuff. I mean, I'm outside all day long doing work. But the thing is, for me, I'm not a normal human. I couldn't stand sitting in an office. I'd rather push my boulder up a hill every single day and do hard physical stuff. That's just how I am. So yeah, it's perfect for me. It wouldn't be perfect for somebody else, where they think they're just going to come out and sprinkle water on plants. That's not how it works.
Yeah, so proper planning for you is very important, so that you're also considering your energy output to care for whatever it is that you're going to be working with. Yeah.
But whether you're growing a couple of ducks or your 100 cows, all of this stuff should be personally rewarding at a deep emotional and spiritual level.
Yeah.
It should be a rewarding experience for you, because I think this is another case of it's not the end, it's the journey that matters. Okay? It's not achieving the big end goal. It's getting there that really matters. And with the homestead kind of lifestyle, you're always on that journey because you're always doing something. Berna says, exactly. Thanks, hon. Yeah, that's why I encourage people to do this. And I don't shove anything on anybody. It's just, I guess they say plant a seed. Think about doing something. Maybe that'll instigate somebody into action and they try something. And then they're like, oh, wow, that's really rewarding. I have 0.16 acres. 2 apple trees, 2 pomegranates, 3 figs, 7 goji berries. Wow. Cattails, awesome. Peppermint, turmeric, parsley, asparagus, basil, lavender, oregano, thyme, rhubarb. Rhubarb's good. Lemongrass, lemon balm, rosemary, globe mellow, Mexican bird of paradise, 2 Russian sage, 3 muscoffies, 3 buff ducks, 9 quail, vegetables in raised beds, and more. That's awesome, Susan. I remember your story. Remember talking about that?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Really cool that you're doing that. Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah. I'm
that was a
getting
good
parched.
Yeah, my mouth and my tongue are drying out from this yapping. But thank you guys. I really appreciate you stopping in and leaving some questions and comments.
Yeah.
And I hope this was useful.
Yeah, and if you're new, if you're watching this later, we'll just talk about
you two are inspiring me. I'm 62, working full-time and live in a housing subdivision. Aw, well, that's awesome. It's just look into your mind and think what would bring me happiness and why, particularly in this context. And then, gently pursue that. And it becomes self-reinforcing feedback. once you're on that positive feedback loop, it's like, oh, that makes sense, and I feel good about that. I'm going to pursue it sooner. And then, if for some reason you have a detractor, oh, why are you doing that? Just stay over there. I have a big backyard. Oh, you should use some of that big backyard. For sure.
But yeah, do steps, stages, plan the yard so that you can pace yourself, feel good about the progress, because everything takes time. And everything takes time to grow, and it's always important not to go too big too fast.
That was a huge issue, Angela W. A lot of people, when we met them at the beginning of all this, they were like, I'm diving in full force, and they didn't plan properly, and they just burn out, and that did happen a lot, but they were doing way bigger than they needed to do to satisfy what would have been their needs. Thanks, everyone. Now the winter is over, and the trimming lines, I can participate again. Awesome.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so if you are watching this later, after the live is done, and you're new to our channel, please feel free to subscribe and like the video. We put out weekly live videos, educational videos, and we just like to encourage you guys to learn new skills, and the quality of life is so important. Quality of life for you, for your family.
We're down here for a short time.
Yeah.
May as well make it a pleasant one as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, we sure do appreciate you. What did you start with?
Us? We went.
Susan, because Susan has a ton of stuff. But what did we start with? I'll tell you.
Yeah.
What did we start with? Quails?
We started with getting set up for our chickens, and we had peeps, and then once they were pullets, then he was also working on the garden. We kind of were like tag teaming. We were working. As soon as our heads hit the pillow, we were out each night. But he was working on the garden too, kind of at the same time. I was doing animals, getting our animals kind of focused, and he was doing plants. And then he was also the carpenter. You were building all sorts of coops and hutches.
I think I built like 20 or 30 because I sold a few. And
yeah, everything was like we did the chickens, then we got the quail going, and then we got our meat rabbits going. Pretty just like every couple months we were on to the next one to get our homestead. And then we also were pursuing the Muscovy ducks. The following season.
Anybody have kids out there in internet land? The reason I ask is a rhetorical question. So when your kids are older, you think about when they were younger, and you're like, oh, they used to drive me nuts. At the time, when they were little, they would drive you nuts doing this, that, or the other, and you're stressed sometimes, maybe. But then as the years passed and they're grown, you look back and you're like, I wish I could go back to the days that they were making me nuts. That was a very meaningful time. That's I have kids, and yes, I have those times. But when we were building all these chicken houses and stressful, I was like going nuts. But looking back, I'm like, wow, it was a very interesting and nice time to do those things. Mm-hmm. Even though it was stressful, it was a lot of work. But looking back, I'm like, oh, it was a very special time. Maybe I'll build more chicken houses. They're not like kids. You don't have to take care of them once they're built. But anyway, I think a lot of these endeavors, if you engage in them, are like that. You will struggle, you will work, and then it'll become memory. And then the struggle and memory will be appreciation and a longing for, because it was the first time. It's like when you read a really good book, you wish you could read it again for the first time. It's kind of like that.
But then it's also good to track your progress, incrementally, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and look back at what you've achieved and what things, maybe went awry and how you corrected it, or what, path you chose to go from there. But it's because that's encouraging, because everything, like we said, takes time, but there's growth. You're experiencing growth, and if you're raising animals or plants, you're going to see that growth in the, the different types of animals you have, the production you got from them, the garden. Has it grown in size over the couple years? Have you explored new vegetables and plants? And just like, it's really good to evaluate and just think about your progress, because it is encouraging. And sometimes people don't give themselves enough credit or like just a few, acknowledgement, not like a award or anything like that, but the whole like, no, you've grown, you've achieved stuff. Like skills are very important and helpful and something that you don't lose. It's just. But anyway, it's very encouraging to look back and then see what you've accomplished.
Quite true.
Mm.
Thank you, ma'am. Knowledge is power. It's 100% correct. That is 100% true. Knowledge is a very valuable resource. And it's weird, man. I'm going to leave off the internet soon because I'll keep talking, but this stuff just pops in my head. We live in the time of abundant information. Everybody has a cell phone, and we have abundant information. And I'm surprised at how little people self-discipline to go acquire some of this knowledge just to learn stuff. Okay, on that happy note, ladies and gentlemen, always a pleasure seeing you guys, Verna, Susan, Taco.
Yeah.
Thank you for stopping in. Anybody else I missed, thank you as well. And I guess we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah.
Thank you for your questions.
Good night. Have a wonderful
Good
night,
night,
everyone.
sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. It's from Shauna Na.
Mm.
She doesn't know that show. All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.